Do you know Japan's 2025 problem? It says that 2025 will be the start of Japan's collapse. The main reason is because in 2025, all the baby boomer generation will be over 75 years old, and the number of people over 75 will reach 22 million. Japan will be the super developed country of old people, but the number of people who can support the old people is declining, and they are often poor. Japan will face a serious problem of highly increased social security expenses and a lack of healthcare workers. So Japan will be sunk by having too many old people. That's why we call this problem the 2025 problem. Now, in Japan, in diplomacy, we are facing a Chinese threat. In domestic affairs, we are facing an old people threat. Today, I will talk about the 2025 problem in Japan. After watching this video, you understand why this problem is a super serious problem for Japanese people. Meshida jokes about Japan. Hey guys, it's Meshida. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm a comedian and I introduce funny Japanese culture. If you are interested in that, please subscribe to my channel. And I'm organizing my solo stand-up comedy shows in Tokyo. If you want to watch my solo show, please check out the link below. And I also have a Patreon page and podcast and other YouTube channel. So please check it out too. Meshida. The United Nations defined older people as over 65 years old. They call between 65 to 74 years old early elderly and over 75 years old late elderly. Furthermore, they call countries with more than 7% older people aging societies and countries with more than 40% old people aged societies. And this is not defined by the United Nations, but some experts call countries that have more than 21% older people super aging societies. In Japan, in 2025, we will have more than 30% older people and 18% late elderly. Japan will be a super aging society. By the way, by 2055, in Japan, the percentage of older people will reach 40%. I want to say to the Chinese Communist Party, it's not a good idea to invade Japan. It will cost a lot to pay our social security expenses. Oops! They have a great system to suppress social security expenses. It's called concentration camps. Hey guys, thank you very much for watching this video. If you like this video, please give me super thanks. It helps me a lot. Thank you. Meshida. One of the big issues of the 2025 problem will be the risk of the collapse of our social security expenses. Social security payments are increasing a lot, including pensions, medical fees, and cost of care. In 2016, it cost 118 trillion yen, and in 2025, it will be 150 trillion yen. And according to the 2022 budget, 60% of our social security expenses are covered by insurance premiums, but 40% will be paid by the national and local government. In 2021, of Japan's national expenses, 35 trillion yen was spent on social security. On the other hand, our government issued a deficit covering government bond for 37 trillion yen. You could say that our social security expenses are covered by national debt. And from now on, many old people will become late elderlies or over 75 years old. We will have more social security expenses. Nowadays, many old Japanese people go to gym and train to stay healthy because they don't want to become a burden to their family. But the older they get, the more they place a burden on Japan. It says that compared to other developed countries, in Japan we have a low taxes and a high cost of social security, and unfortunately our economy has been stagnant for the last 30 years. So we cannot expect the Japanese economy to earn a lot. Our government will have to choose their strategy, increase taxes, increase the cost of social security, or reduce the aging population.
Meshida.
The 2025 problem will occur because of 8 million baby boomers who will be over 75 years old. This is people who were born between 1947 to 1949 during the post-war period. In these 3 years, 8 million babies were born. By the way, in 2021, the number of births was 810,000. This shows that the baby boomer generation is so big. Maybe after the World War, everything was burned, so they didn't have entertainment at all. You could say that the baby boomer generation supported Japan's high economic growth. In 1960, when many of them started working, they moved to the big city from the countryside and they get jobs, and they were called the golden egg. Now they've changed from golden eggs to silver weights. Once they were called the leading actors of Japan's high economic growth, but now they are called the leading actors of Japan's collapse.
Meshida.
In 2025, it says that there will be 50 million households in Japan. Among them, 19 million householders will be over 65 years old. 70% of all the householders will live with old married partners or live by themselves. The number of old people living alone will increase to 37% of all householders, or 6,800,000 households. Abroad, many young people start living by themselves in order to begin their lives. In Japan, old people start living by themselves to end their lives. Also, old people's poverty rate is increasing. Some socialists say that in 2025, out of almost 19 million old householders, almost 10 million will be over 75 years old, and 70% of that 10 million will live with anxiety about their financial situation, while 15% will fall into poverty. I think many of those poor old people will want to hold a protest against the Japanese government. Unfortunately, it's kind of a mission impossible because to go out, they need money for the bus.
Meshida.
One of the big problems is that the middle-aged people who need to support the old people are poor. The middle-aged generation is called the employment ice age generation and are mainly 50 years old because after the burst of Japan's economic bubble in the early 1990s, they started working and it was very difficult to get a job as a regular employee. So many of them had to work as temporary workers, and now they have become poor middle-aged temporary employees. It's said almost 20 million people are categorized into this employment ice age generation. 30% of them are temporary employees, and among the temporary employees, 70% are regarded as poor workers who earn less than 2 million yen annual income. As the baby boomer generation gets old, they will depend on the ice age generation. As a result, the baby boomer generation will also freeze. Literally, no one can afford electricity. And it says that 3 million of the ice age generation are still living with their old parents, and among them, 300,000 people are hikikomori. So, they need their parents' financial support. Many of the ice age generation were expecting to be supported by a warm government and the ice would be slowly melted. But instead, their aging parents will crash down like a meteorite and end the ice age in a different way. In 3 million households, baby boomer parents and their ice age generation are living together, both trying to support each other on their non-existent incomes. Our government should define them as endangered and get WWF funding.
飯だ
In Japan, elderly people who are requiring care are cared for basically by housemates. More than 60% of caregivers are housemates, either married partners, children or children-in-laws, and more than 70% of care workers are over 60 years old. So, old people are caring for super old people. Sometimes, super old people care for super old people. In Japan, middle-aged people are often expected to quit their jobs to take care of their parents. Often, this responsibility falls to the women. That's why many Japanese men want to get married. It's said in the near future, our social security may collapse. So, social security support will decrease and many old parents and their children will go bankrupt. Currently, Japanese people don't take this problem seriously. That's why many people don't vote in elections and depend on our social system. But from 2025, this problem will be so serious and many people will suffer from this tragedy. Then, finally, our voter turnout will be higher. Many of the employment ice age generation who are 50 to 6 years old vote in the elections and ask them to reduce young people's education fees support and instead increase social security support for old people. Then young people cannot afford to pay into social security either.
飯だ
In 2025, the late elderly population will increase rapidly. So, we will have a serious labor shortage problem. First, we will have a shortage of doctors and nurses. We will especially need more nurses from 2025. It says that at most, we will need 260,000 more nurses to support our aging society. And what is worse, this shortage situation will increase the burden on current doctors and nurses, and their turnover rate will increase. Unfortunately, the more the healthcare workers shortage increases, the more healthcare workers will quit and the more older people will die. Maybe this is our government strategy for an aging society. Also, we will have a serious shortage of caregivers. In 2025, we will need 2,530,000 caregivers in Japan. So, it said we will have a shortage of 330,000 caregivers. As a result, we will have many wait-listed elderly people who cannot enter nursing homes. In Japan, we also have many children wait-listed for daycare. So, how about the wait-listed elderly take care of the children to keep active and healthy? Sorry, it's not a good idea. It will just decrease the number of children. And it's well known that caregivers' work conditions are so bad. They have a low salary and work long hours and they have a high turnover rate. So, we need more Asian foreign caregivers. But unfortunately, now the Japanese yen is very cheap. So, even for Asian workers from developing countries, a caregiver's job has a low salary and is hard work. Japanese politicians must think on this problem seriously because most of them are already late elderly.
飯だ
In 2025, the number of late elderly people will reach almost 35 million. Among them, 21% or 7,300,000 old people will have a dementia. Japan will be the most developed country for dementia. The number of Japan's dementia patients will be the same as the population of Hong Kong. Unlike the Chinese government, the Japanese government cannot secretly reduce the population numbers. And old people with dementia become a burden on caregivers. So, the more the dementia patients increases, the less people will want to work as caregivers. I think the famous American zombie drama, The Walking Dead, depicted Japan's future. In Japan, instead of calling them The Walking Dead, We call them the walking dementia. And instead of killing them, we have to take care of them.
飯だ
Thank you very much for watching this video. If you like this video, please like and subscribe to my channel. And please check out my Patreon page and podcast and other YouTube channel. So, see you soon. Bye bye.